Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Redwood podcast. We're glad you have joined us today. And if you're new, I'm Samuel Johnson, and this is my sidekick, Angelo Liloc. And I've been entrusted dangerously to host this episode. And we're talking about purpose and identity and where we find those. Do we find it in the world? Do we find it in God? And how, something that I've been thinking about right at the moment, how has the modern church and our modern world influenced our view of identity and purpose? And with that, I throw you the softball.
Hi, it's his trusty sidekick.
Yeah.
Mother.
Yeah, where did that come from? I don't know.
That was good. I got upgraded from co-host to sidekick.
That's right.
It's just getting better and better. Yeah. Can't wait till what happens. Can't wait till next week to see what title I get. I love this topic because I think a lot of people, not just men, right? But right now, if we're going to speak directly to men, I think a lot of men operate from a sense of identity. I don't remember if we talked about it on a previous podcast or it was in one of our men's group calls in the morning. But when men retire from work, it's hard for them to see any other identity besides of what they've been doing the last 20, 30 years. And I think that's definitely like something that comes from the world, especially like when you introduce yourself, like, hey, I'm Angelo, I'm a police officer, right? That's kind of the normal conversation, right? When you introduce yourself, you say your name and then you give your title. And then that becomes like part of you. And this identity of what you do is now who you are. And I think that's a dangerous place to operate from, because if the world gave you that title, then that means the world can take it away.
That's right.
And when the world takes it away, then what's left? And I think that's why we're left with a lot of fragile egos, a lot of fragile men who just don't know how to operate outside of who the world told them they are.
Yeah. And how do I want to say this? And they're waiting. Wait, so you see that the cowardly men who are waiting for the world to tell me who I am, and then I can start functioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell me that I'm a entrepreneur, or tell me that I'm a businessman, or tell me that I'm supposed to do this or that, and instead of hearing from the Holy Spirit, well, who does God say that you are, and then just go live it out.
Yeah. I think we've we've very much so fallen further from the original blueprint of what God has called men to be. And it's caused this identity crisis in a lot of people. You can see it in kids. You can see it definitely in men. We just don't know. The other day, I was interviewed on a live YouTube, and we were talking about identity, and I was talking about how men, we don't know how to cope with loss and confusion very well. What do most men do? I think especially in the warrior community, right? It's, well, drink and or play video games. And that's how we cope. And that's just part of the, I don't know, lack of knowledge.
Take it dark for a second, or beat their wives, or cheat on them, right? Or have lots of sex, right? So, but they're all the same thing. I'm going to choose for myself how to show that I have mastery, control, or power. All right, but it's an illusion. It's fake.
Mastery, control, and power. Yeah.
Right. So especially, I think the video games is a really good example of that, right? So like if my power has been taken from me, I can master this video game. I can show it who's boss, right? And I mean, and I don't have anything against video games. Please don't hear it this way, but like, how juvenile, how childish is that? I don't have any control over my life, so let me beat this game.
Yeah. And I love that you add that in there, because I'm the same way. Like my brother and I, that was one of our favorite pastimes. We would play video games, and that's okay, right? But there comes to a point where, could this be masking something else? Is this covering for something else? Is this fulfilling something else that I really need to spend more time diving into and try to understand? Because like you said, there's this sense of winning, there's this sense of accomplishment that the video game is fulfilling for me that I'm not really getting in real life. And now this virtual win is now I'm trying to make that a reality. I'm winning in real life, and it's not the case.
And real life is going to cost you something. So in a video game, you can get blown up and you just get your life back. And someone was telling me, I don't play Fortnite, and there's something about like you can, is it knocking people? I think that's what it's called. You get knocked, and then you can
I'm
give
not even sure
someone.
what that is. I'm not even sure what that is. Damn
Yeah,
it.
you get knocked. My 10-year-old nephew is telling me about it. You get knocked, and then if you get knocked so many times, you can lose all your power. But then someone can come over and like touch you and restore your power. And like that's not real life. Like if you get knocked in real life, you're gonna die. Like that's the end. You know. Like, so there's inherent safety, and I don't think most men would say it that way. I don't think most men would like. I think this is a challenging episode if you are like immersed in the gaming world. What you're telling me is that I'd rather be safe than risk failing.
Yes.
Because the real world is hard, and I think we have created, and you've said it before, we've created soft men that are terrified of failure, and trust me, I have been there. I have absolutely been there, and I don't want to go back. I would much rather fail valiantly than not try.
Yeah. Yeah. But then now we live in a world where men don't try, men don't step up, men don't do anything more other than to fulfill a selfish need, a selfish gap, or whatever they're feeling. And that's just part of the whole downward spiral with short-term,
Yeah,
gratification. And that really does lead to all this stuff that we're trying to battle against with porn and trafficking and all these things. People are like, oh my gosh, how are you linking all these things with identity and then trafficking? Like, it's a real thing. The facts are there, the
yeah,
data is
absolutely.
there, it all is connected.
Yeah, because if you are too afraid to try, and most guys wouldn't say it that way, but we're just pulling away the curtain a little bit here.
Yeah.
But if you're afraid to try, part of that, at least for me, is someone isn't giving you a pat on the back every 5 minutes, right? I've talked to a man who's a little bit older than me, and he has a management role in a pretty large company, and he's asked like, how do I influence these younger people? And I said, you're not going to like hearing what I have to say. And he's like, what? I said, you need to give them pats on the back constantly. You need to give them attaboys and praise because it's just what they're used to. And I'm not here to criticize that part of it. Like, I'm just saying that's what the world has created for this generation. We've got to start with the reality. The reality is, if you grew up playing video games, if you grew up hearing in school, you're doing such a great job, you're just going to expect that. And if it's taken away from you, you're going to rebel. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying any of that is healthy, but we do have to function in a real world. So if you're a Gen X or a baby boomer, listen, this is how it works. You have got to do that for the younger generation. Until you do, they're not going to listen.
Yeah.
And those who are younger, I'm sorry to tell this to you, but that this is what the world has done to you. I apologize to you for it happening, but you are in a position to think that you need a pat on the back every 5 minutes. And for older generations, they look at that as incredibly silly. And when you get angry about it, and it doesn't work, right? Because it divides generations, but at least we're here speaking truth to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that kind of comes from, in terms of the younger generation, do you think that kind of comes from um, everyone getting participation trophies, even though they didn't really do squat?
I think it's part of it. And I don't think all of it is bad. Like I think there's some sort of healthy balance here, right? Because The opposite is the kid who came home to his parents and is like, look, I got an A in my test. And the parent, like the latchkey kid, I came from that generation. And the parent is like, who cares? Right. That's not good either. I mean, there's some
Correct.
healthy balance here, but sadly, pendulums tend to swing to the far ends of these extremes. And it's usually what, like my generation were the latchkey kids, and we decided to do the opposite for our kids, right? We like lathered them and slathered them in praise because we weren't getting it, and then it just sort of swings back and forth. The healthy thing is somewhere in the middle. So I don't think the participation trophy is the problem as much as what was it that created the need for participation trophies. It was a generation of kids that never got any praise. So it just keeps swinging.
That's so good. I've heard that question or analogy so many different times, but that's the only time I've ever heard an actual intellectual response to it. Usually it's really like you said,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
pendulum. Like,
emotional. It's emotional based, right? Because whatever generation you're in, you're attacking the other one.
yeah.
And what this says is, well, wait a minute. We all have a role to play in this. We
Mm.
all have to look at, well, what are we doing to say, like, well, look, there's some sort of healthy balance we should have in all of this. Yeah, people should be praised for what they do, but they don't need it every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's so good because I came up from a similar background where we didn't get a whole lot of, hey, I'm proud of you or great job. It was just like, okay, cool. Like, hey, I did this. All right, cool. Sure you did. Right. Like, it is what
Right.
it right. So I look at the participation trophy like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that crap. But now that you share that, it's a generational thing. Like, it totally makes sense in my head.
Well, and kids know the difference, right? There have been studies, I can't cite them right now, but there have been studies about the difference between giving like this blanket praise and saying, you're so great. What a good job. And then saying to a child, you made, like if it's a drawing, right? You
Mm-hmm.
made really beautiful trees. You should keep doing that, right? Kids know
Mm.
the difference between someone praising them blanket, like a blanket statement, and someone who's actually, and that is praise that is valuable. The praise when you said, like, I noticed this thing about you and you should keep doing that.
You said something earlier that I think we need to really dive into more. I love where this conversation's going. And I love like these quicker, like, hey, like instead of the 45-minute, conversations, we're really like trying to dive into it quick. But there's something that continues to pop into my mind as we're talking about, like, what's it going to cost? What's it going to cost? Right. We go back to the dude that's just playing video games to maybe fulfill a short-term need or a short-term lack. And we're not saying you necessarily have to drop it all, but what we're saying is realize what is this going to
Yeah.
cost you to change. And I think that's what scares most people is to see what it's going to cost to get to where they want to go. And then they don't want to pay the price or they can't pay the price or it's going to hurt too much. And there's a lot of it is just avoidance of pain, I think.
And what about this too, that people haven't seen the long-term results? Like you have to have had some experience with it. And I hear some people saying, but I haven't had that opportunity. I know you haven't. But if you do what Angelo says, if you just keep playing video games for hours and hours, you aren't going to get to that benefit. And you and I have had this conversation about this. Like one of the easiest ways, and I hope you don't hear that negatively, listeners. One of the easiest ways to see this fruit in action is in physical activity, right? You're going to see that, yes, it takes some time. And the reason I'm saying it this way is, like, if you want to see some results, start there. Start with your nutrition, start with your body, and realize that that's just the beginning. That is the tip of the iceberg. Then you can start changing relationships. Then you can start changing your mindset about your ability to succeed in business, or whatever it is you want to do if it's entrepreneurial. But start with something to build your confidence that takes a while. I've been being pretty tight on my fitness, and I'm going to say it took 2 months of daily dedication to see some significant results. In the grand scheme of things, 2 months isn't really that long.
Right. Right. And that's part of why we did so well in the fitness industry, previous entrepreneurial ventures, because I realized it is the easiest thing to see and gauge. When you see like, oh, I'm getting better, or my mindset is getting better, or it's improving, can't really touch that, feel that, see that, right? You could sense it as an individual, but it's hard to measure. Your physical body, you can measure. You can measure your body fat, you can measure your weight, your muscle mass, all these different things. There's real numbers behind it that will show tangible.
And I think in addition to that, like then maybe the next one that's easy is finances. You can look at that and that can be very clear. But the tough ones are changing your relationship with your spouse
Yes.
or with friends. It doesn't, if you're not married, that's okay. But those are the intangibles, and dare I say the most important. I think that they are the most important, but we tend to avoid making changes there because it's hard to measure.
It is. It is. And we live by a world that's so like, we live by sight. We want to see the fruit. We want to see the results. We want to experience, like, it's hard to say, how do you know if your marriage has gotten better? Is it getting better right now? Is it getting worse? How do you know that? It's really hard to measure. So most people don't, like you said, will avoid
Just
it
avoid it.
altogether.
And escape back, taking this full circle, escape into something that's a lot easier. So maybe you've mastered your body and maybe you've mastered finances, and you try one of those harder things and you say, no, I'm going to go back to the easier things. And I want to say, don't give up. Don't give up. Like if you've mastered those things, keep pushing, keep trying, move to the next level, move to the next level.
And not to overcomplicate it for the listeners or viewers, but that's why having such a high level of self-awareness and being able to slow down and see what's really happening in the details is important. Because there's one thing, like let's say fitness, all of a sudden, that could be the goal, but then eventually it could become your new crutch, your new safety net, because you're so used to it. So that's why we encourage guys, the people, to continue to build a rhythm of slowing down and just not always go, 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 which is kind of the culture we live in right now. And trust me, I'm there. I'm still there. It's really hard for me to slow down, but I have to be intentional about it, because when I don't, I'm just continuing to chop down at that tree with a dull axe.
And I've used this metaphor before with you, and I think it's going to fit here. So I believe most men who are striving forward, and if you're listening to this podcast, and women, you're probably working towards at least two legs. And the two legs would be faith. No, sorry. The two legs would be fitness and finances. So, and in finances, that's all encompassing to business, your work, etc. And you're probably having some level of mastery in those areas. But the problem is two legs are not stable. You're never going to sit on a two-legged chair or stool. You can't. The third leg is typically what I like to call a family. So that's relationships with your partner, relationships with friends, relationships with your kids. So again, I'm talking that all encompassing, and that way we get 4 F's out of this. So you've got your fitness, your finances, your family. And the last one, and I think people sometimes try to start with this one, and I don't think it's wise. The last one is faith. And people can argue with me about this. That's fine. But I think you should get mastery in these others. That doesn't mean you're ignoring faith. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when you're going for mastery, I think it should be the last one. And a four-legged chair is significantly more stable than a three-legged stool.
So good. Yeah, next time we definitely have to dive deeper into that, because I think that a lot of people, men specifically, right? But we live in just one or two.
Yeah.
We'll master one or two because that's what we're really good at, and the other
Right.
to, or just, yeah, we're okay. We might try to attempt to build that third leg and try to have a little bit more stability, but it's scary, it's awkward, it's unsafe, so we won't pursue it all the way. So that stability never comes.
And it's part of why you're falling over.
Correct. Because life is dynamic. It's not just a one or two legged thing. Like, you're constantly switching from different roles and different identities. So it's not just I'm a great provider, but I'm a crappy husband, or I'm a great dad, but I'm a horrible worker, whatever.
And we're also not saying I'm going to be honest about myself, right? We're also not saying that you're excellent at all of these all the time. It means you're striving towards, like, we were literally talking about some frustrations that we have about these things. Life is hard, yes. And there's joy in all of that. And there's joy in trying to work on it, right? So I think there's greater frustration in ignorance and pushing it away and not looking at it than saying, okay, I'm not where I want to be. And I think we're honored in that. I think we're honored by our peers and honored by God by saying, I recognize I'm struggling here with relationships. I recognize I'm struggling with my faith journey. I think those are honorable things. You have to start knowing where you're at.
Amen. That's it. That's it. And then, just like how we talked about in the beginning, you're finding purpose and identity. And I think that's a great way to wrap it up, just like you did, because your identity is always shifting. So that means your purpose cannot just be one thing. There's a lot of things that you have to take stewardship over, take responsibility, and take leadership over. So these things are shifting and those things are dynamic, but that's what we want to share. It's not just like one thing, but those things can be broken up. That one big thing is usually broken up into a lot of different areas of life.
And if I can say, like, because this was a part of our meeting yesterday, that there is hope and joy in all of this, right? Like, I mean, I can just speak for it myself. Like, I wasn't always this driven and passionate, but when your mindset, I believe, given by the Holy Spirit, moves to wanting to improve, there's joy in that. And I'm the first to admit, no, I'm not successful. I'm not where I want to be. But that is okay, because I know that the end result, meaning when all of this is over, I'm going to be blessed and I'm going to receive a reward. And this isn't all that there is for me. Like, this is just this, I know some people don't like this term, but this is just this meat suit that I wear on this planet. Like, this is not forever. And I have joy in that. I have joy to look forward to something else. So don't give up. Don't give up, everybody. That was my point.
Well said. Well said. Well said. I appreciate you, brother. You are a great sidekick.
No, you're my sidekick. No, you're my sidekick. We're going to come up with superhero names here, I think.
I know, right? That's so funny. Yeah, that'll be a great episode. If you guys have any ideas for superhero
that's right.
names,
send them our way.
Send them our way. I'd like to see what. keep them PG.
Clean.
PG-13 to max. PG-13. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your insights today, man. Always a good time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, listeners.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.